Okay, we're going to learn how to factor all polynomials. So you've already spent like 3 years on factoring quadratics. Now we're going to look at factoring cubics, quartics, and some quintics. Sounds really scary. So I can factor anything because I am a factoring beast. Okay, so look at this formula. This is called the sum of cubes and the difference of cubes. So I try to color code it a little bit. And this is just one of those crazy formulas that you have to know. You'll see it again on the ACT sometimes. They do not give you this formula. Something you have to know. Okay, so the only difference between the sum and difference of cubes are the signs. So sum means plus sign, difference means minus sign. So we're looking at the sum of cubes for our example. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite it so it looks like this. Okay, so what this is saying is something cubed plus something cubed. So x cubed, let me do it like this, would be an x cubed. Like if I cubed an x, I would get x cubed. Okay, and then for the next one, I got to figure out what cubed is 27, or you can do the cube root of 27. So 3 cubed is 27. Alright, so I tried to rewrite it so it looks like this. Alright, so here's how you factor this. Alright, so the two things that you were finding are the two things that go in here. And it's always going to be a plus sign. So if it started out with a plus sign, it's going to be the same sign. Alright, and then the next parentheses, you have whatever was being cubed, so x, and you're going to square it, minus the two things that were being cubed, so the x and the 3, and we're going to multiply that. And x times a 3 is a 3x. And then plus, the very last thing is whatever you were cubing, but now you're going to square it. So I was cubing a 3, I'm going to take a 3 and I'm going to square it. 3 squared is 9. So notice it has the opposite sign. And this last one is always positive. So if you're not going to remember anything, look at this acronym SOAP. And it'll help you if you have a multiple choice question. So same sign, opposite sign, always positive. SOAP. Same, opposite, always positive. Alright, so difference of cubes. So I'm going to rewrite it so it looks like this. Something cubed minus something cubed. So in order to get an x cubed, I would have to cube an x. Okay? And in order to get a 1 cubed, I would have to cube the number 1. Okay. And then this is how it factors. The two things that were being cubed, I'm going to write together with a minus sign, because they always have the same sign. Alright, then the very first thing that was being cubed, the x, I'm going to square it. So I have x squared. Then I'm going to have the opposite sign. Alright, and then the thing in the middle are the two things being cubed, the x and the 1, but I'm going to multiply. So a 1 times x is just a 1x. The last sign is always positive. So there's that word SOAP. And then the very last thing is what was being cubed at the end, the 1, and I'm going to square it. And a 1 squared is a 1. So my final answer looks like this. X minus 1, x squared plus 1x plus 1. That's the answer I'm looking for. Alright, let's do some more. It's the same formula every time. So the hardest part is figuring out how to rewrite it. So you got to figure out what cubed would give you 500. Or you can think about doing the cube root of 500. Okay, and if you do this in your calculator, notice what's going to happen is you're going to get 7.937000526. So that's not even a perfect cube. So that should alert you that remember the very first step in everything you do in factoring is to find a GCF. So the number that 504 are both divisible by is 4. Okay. So 500 divided by 4 is 125. X cubed plus 4 divided by 4 is 1. This part is the sum of cubes. Alright, and the 4 is just going to go at the very end, so don't even worry about that right now. So I'm going to take 125x cubed plus 1, and I'm going to write it as something cubed plus something cubed. So the cube root of 125 is 5, so that's my something. And an x, if I cube it, is going to be, it's kind of like this. If I cube 5x, I get 125x cubed. Plus, I want to figure out what cubed is 1. The cube root of 1 is just 1, so this becomes 1 cubed. Alright, and now I'm going to use the formula up at the top. Okay, so the very first thing I found, 5x plus 1, those were the two things being cubed. And then the next parentheses, the first thing being cubed was a 5x. If I square 5x, if I square 5, I get 25. If I square an x, I get x squared. Minus sign. Now I'm going to multiply the two things being cubed, the 5x and the 1. If I multiply 5x and 1, I get 5x. Plus, the last thing that was being cubed, I'm going to square it. 1 squared is 1. So here's my final answer. I had a 4, I have a 5x plus 1, I have a 25x squared minus 5x plus 1, and that is how I factor cubics. Okay, I'm going to tell you this, but you can't say I told you. If you're not going to take pre-cal, you're never going to use this again. We got to use it now because it's in the North Carolina curriculum. You'll see it if we take the EOC at the end of the year. You'll see it when you take the ACT your junior year. Okay, but if other than that, you're never going to use this. Okay, so just don't freak out, that's what I'm saying. Okay, here's the difference of cubes. I gotta rewrite this as something cubed minus something cubed. The cube root of 216 is 6. And if I cube an x, I get x cubed. Okay, minus. And we just did this. The cube root of 125 is 5. Alright, so now I'm going to follow the little formulas right up there. I'm going to write the something cube minus the other something cubed. I don't like that. Yuck. Okay. Sorry, it just looks ugly. Okay. And then, the first thing that we took the cube root of, the 6x, I'm now going to square it. So a 6 squared is 36. And x squared is x squared. Plus sign. Now for the middle, I'm going to multiply the two things that were being cubed, the 6x and the 5. 6x times 5 is a 30x. And then at the very end, I'm going to take the last thing that was being cubed, and I'm going to square it, because it says to square it right there. 5 squared is 25. So here's my final answer. 6x minus 5, 36x squared, plus 30x, plus 25. Okay, so each time I'm using the formulas. I'm rewriting them just like it says. The something cubed and the something cubed go right there. Then I'm going to square the first thing. Then I'm going to multiply the two things together, and then I'm going to square the last thing. It's color-coded. See if you can figure it out before you freak out. You can also go to YouTube and type in sum and difference of cubes and watch other videos. But if you want to be a victim and not learn anything, then you can say, I can't do online learning. Always a possibility, but it doesn't work for me. Alright, I want you to try this one. Pause the video, see if you can figure out the formula. Okay, bye. Alright, here's the two things being cubed. Now I'm going to follow the formula. X plus 7. Because it literally says, what are the two things being cubed? Then the next thing, I'm going to start squaring stuff. Then I'm going to multiply stuff. Then I'm going to square it, because that's what it says. Square, multiply, square. So the first thing, the x, I'm going to square it, which gives me x squared. Minus, now I'm going to multiply the two things. An x times a 7 is a 7x. And then the last thing I'm going to do is take the thing that was being cubed, and I'm going to square it. A 7 squared is a 49, so plus 49. My final answer, x plus 7, x squared minus 7x plus 49. If you can't do that, you're not reading a formula correctly. Schedule a meeting with me. Come talk to me. Find some stuff on YouTube. Alright, here's the difference of cubes. See if you can figure out how to rewrite it as something cubed minus something cubed. Alright, so now I rewrote it. I'm going to follow the formula. The two things that I found the cube root of go in the first parentheses. Then I'm going to square, multiply, square. So a 2x squared, 2 squared is 4, x squared is x squared. Plus sign. Now I'm going to multiply the two things. 2x times 1 is a 2x. Plus sign. Now I'm going to square the last part. So 1 squared is 1. That's my final answer. Alright, let's move on to some easier stuff. Okay, so if you have these three things going on, a degree of 4, 3 terms, you're going to factor like a quadratic. So we already did this several times. You've done this for 2-3 years now. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me 24. Oh, sorry, that was supposed to be a minus. My bad. Multiply to give me negative 24, add to give me 2. Those two numbers are 6 and negative 4. 6 and negative 4. So then I would have wrote x plus 6 and x minus 4. That's how you factor a quadratic. You're going to factor a quartic the same way. Looking for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 24, but add to give me 2. Those two numbers are 6 and negative 4. This time, I'm just going to do x squared plus 6, because that's what the middle says, x squared. And I'm going to do x squared minus 4. Now, if it has a plus sign, you're done. If it has a minus sign, you can probably factor it further. So, if I'm factoring x squared minus 4, think of two numbers that multiply to give you negative 4, add to give you 0. Those two numbers are 2 and negative 2. So this is actually x minus 2, x plus 2. And then the thing from the very beginning. That's my final answer. Okay. So this one is one of those more complicated ones. We don't have a 1 in front of x cubed, so now we have to multiply the a and the c terms. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 15, but add to give me 14. Those two numbers are... Oh, let's do 14. Oh, sorry. Try that again. 15 and negative 1. 15 and negative 1. So I would rewrite the middle with 15x minus 1x minus 5. And then I would group the first two and the last two. If you don't know what I'm talking about, stop right now and go watch a video on factoring quadratics. I'm going to pull out a GCF of 3x. I'm left with x plus 5. I'm going to pull out a GCF of negative 1. I'm left with x plus 5. So notice the two parentheses match, x plus 5. And then the two GCFs you took out, 3x minus 1. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing for the quartic. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 15. Add to give me 14. Has to be 15 and negative 1. The only difference is that when I rewrite the middle, notice that the middle had an x squared, so it's going to be plus 15x squared minus 1x squared minus 5. Same thing. Group the first two and last two. So I can pull out a 3x squared, I'm left with x squared plus 5. I can pull out a minus 1, I'm left with x squared plus 5. So my two answers are x squared plus 5, can't go any further because it's a plus sign, and 3x minus 1, can't go any further than that. Okay, so I want you to try these to see if you understand it. So pause the video and actually try it in 1, 2, 3. Alright, I'm not explaining this anymore because I've already made videos on how to factor quadratics. So if you don't understand what I just did, you need to stop right now, go back and rewatch that video. So this one is a quartic. It works the same way. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 16. They have to add to give me 0. The two numbers are 4 and negative 4. 4 and negative 4. So when I rewrite these, it's going to be x squared plus 4, x squared minus 4. This one can be factored further because it's a minus sign. It's a difference of squares. So it's going to become x minus 2, x plus 2. And then the x squared plus 4 is also an answer. Okay, moving on. You try this one. This one is factoring a quadratic, is factoring one of the harder quadratics. So pause the video and try it in 1, 2, 3. Alright, so you can pause the video because I'm going pretty quickly, I understand. And if you have any questions, you can send me a message. Okay, other than that, let's move on. Alright, so we're going to look at factoring with 4 terms. So there are 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so whenever we do this, we're going to group the first 2 and last 2 together. Alright, check. We're going to factor out a monomial GCF, so looking for just one term. So if you look at the first one, we can take out an x squared, and then we're left with x minus 1. If you look at the second parentheses, you can factor out a 9, x minus 1. So that was our monomial GCF, and now we're going to factor out a binomial GCF. So a binomial will be something they both have in common, like x minus 1. So x minus 1, and then you're left with the x squared plus 9. None of these factor further, so we're through. That's it. These are pretty easy. I like them. Alright, same thing. We're going to group the first 2 terms and the last 2 together. We're going to pull out a monomial GCF. That first one, we can pull out 2x to the 4th, and then we'll be left with x minus 9. For the second one, I can pull out a 7 and left with x minus 9. So check, check, and sorry, I did the wrong color. And then the last one, we're looking for a binomial that they both have. They both have x minus 9, so I'm going to pull out an x minus 9, and we're left with the 2x to the 4th plus 7. Alright, those cannot be factored further, so we're good. Alright, so you try this one, pause the video and actually try it in 1, 2, 3. First thing you do is group them, then you're going to pull out a GCF. Okay, so there's my monomial GCF. Now I'm going to pull out the binomial GCF, and neither one of those can be factored any further, so that is the answer. Alright, so if you'll try this last one, pause the video and actually try it in 1, 2, 3. Alright, here's the answer you should get. You can see my work. If you have any questions, let me know. And go do your haiku assignment. And if you have any trouble, you have to let me know. Okay, bye.